All right, we are live from Bellingham. It's Thursday night.
I have 7 o'clock on my cell phone. Speaking of cell phones, if you can just put your cell phones on vibrate, it'd be much appreciated. I'd like to welcome you to the Thursday, April 10th, 2025 meeting of the Bellingham Planning Board. We're going to take the agenda a little bit out of order. Can you give us, Robert, actually, it's going to be in order.
Yeah, it's in order.
An update on Prospect Hill Village.
Yeah, so Prospect Hill Village, the applicant has requested a continuance. They're working through the peer review edits right now. Matter of fact, I believe we just received today an updated submission, so they're looking for a continuance to the next meeting, April 24th, I believe. Bear with me. Yeah, April 24th. And then we have our deadline for the decision is May 31st, so we're still okay with that, so.
I'd entertain a motion on the continuance. So moved, Phil. Do I have a second?
Second, Nick.
We have a motion for continuance to April 24th, made and seconded. Any discussion? I would like to call for that vote and also make it call for the attendance.
Nick, aye. Can I vote?
Yes.
Liz, aye.
Bill O'Connell, aye.
Bill, aye. Steve, aye.
That motion passes unanimously. The next item is the public hearing on 190, 194, and 198 Hartford Avenue. Before we discuss that, I apologize if anyone's here this evening for the Prospect Hill. We received this late
Yeah.
continuance. So if you came in specifically for that, I apologize. Can you bring us up to date on 190, 194, 198 Hartford Avenue?
Sure, so there's two separate hearings for two separate projects on Hartford Ave, so. Just so when we open for public comment, nobody's confused with which one we're going to be is presented by the applicant, but. Just for clarity, this public hearing, this is the first time that this is being heard in front of the planning board. We did open the public hearing at I think it was the March 13th meeting, but immediately continued because the applicant had, scheduling constraints. So this is the first time the planning board's hearing this application. The applicant's here. I believe you have a brief presentation to give, which I can pull up and, I would say we can go from there.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jonathan Silverstein. I'm counsel for the applicant on this project. We have representatives here on traffic, architecture, engineering. Of course, the applicant is here as well.
Sorry, just so it'll stream.
Of course. Yeah. We have, as the planner indicated, a brief presentation tonight, just to give you a very high level overview of the project. And then we'll give you brief presentations on the engineering, traffic, and architectural features of the project, and then open it up for questions from the board. So the applicant is Route 85 Development. I'm Jonathan Silverstein, legal counsel. Bowler is the civil engineer on the project. John Cusich is here. Jason Adams from Bowman, which is the traffic consultant, and Axel Solberg from HFA, which is the architect. So briefly, what we're going to try to cover in this presentation is just a short history of the project, the history and the zoning, the existing conditions, the proposed site layout, traffic analysis, and then, Axel will run through the renderings of the project. This didn't make it in. Oh, it is in there, great. Just not in my version. So, briefly, the project was purchased by the applicant about 7 years ago. Some of you may remember there were discussions about an initial project that would involve a gas station and convenience store. That was presented to town meeting. That zoning amendment was unsuccessful. So the applicant went back to the drawing board in close consultation with the town. And came back at a town meeting, the annual town meeting in 2023. And a zoning amendment was passed that would pave the way for the project as proposed. The project requires a special permit from this board, which is why we're before you. And the bylaw, which governs this overlay district, has clear development standards, and we'll walk you through, or rather, John will walk you through how the project satisfies those standards at the appropriate time. Anyone want to walk through the existing conditions?
Yep, absolutely. John Cusick with Bowler for the record. Nice to see you all again. So the existing conditions are up on screen. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with it. It's very visible location in town, located on the north side of Hartford Avenue. And on this particular parcel, you'll notice it's just to the east of Cedar Hill Road. There are 3 vacant homes currently on the property today. And beyond that, it's just really a flat lawn area. You'll notice that there was a landscape berm and wall placed along the northern and easterly property lines. You can see that on the plan up on the screen. And the site's relatively flat. It's probably, got 4 or so feet from the northern portion of the site, heading in towards Hartford Ave. One thing I wanted to point out as well, again, just for everybody, I'm sure is aware of it, Hartford Ave is obviously full access, but the side street is only exit out towards Hartford Ave. There's no entrance there. It's one direction anyway. From the proposed conditions,
Next slide.
next slide, please. Again, I'll keep this super high level, so if you want me to go into further detail, please let me know. But we're proposing about a 5,000 square foot building. It's actually going to be on two stories. You'll notice that it's located on the western one third of the site. Access into the property would be through Hartford Avenue. That would be a full access in and out. There's also just a secondary driveway located on the roadway to the left that would allow the cars to get back to the signal at that location. There are 40 parking spaces that are required for the development, just retail office use. There are 49 that's proposed on the site plan, of which there's 3 accessible parking stalls as well as 2 electric stalls. You'll notice the screening that I talked about earlier. You can see the existing berm directly behind the building. That is remaining. On the right-hand side, there's an existing berm there that's remaining as well. And then right in the middle, top right, there was actually a wall that was constructed. That wall stays. There's a fence on top of the wall for the butter above. We're just replanting the landscaping right in front of that. So that will be replaced. But the wall and the fence and that screening does remain. We have trash enclosure that's fully fenced in, shown on the plan. And then new landscaping proposed within the landscape islands internal to the site, as well along the perimeter of each roadway. Pretty straightforward, pretty straightforward plan. Again, we wanted to just make sure it was a nice transitional use what the location was, and we wanted to really make sure that we maintained the that vegetation and that wall that was on the other side as part of the project. It's about 1.23 acres. I didn't mention that earlier on. I wanted to mention that. From a stormwater standard, there will be an underground infiltration basin that is constructed on the site. There'll be a private septic system that will be constructed, and there are public water connections for the property. So, high level, that's what we have from a civil standpoint. I can turn it over to Jason Adams now to go through the traffic component and then architecture, and then come back, or I can answer any questions with this, whatever your preference is.
We just hear from your specialists.
Yeah.
And then we'll eventually have questions at the end.
Perfect.
Just while Jason's coming up, I want to reiterate that the existing wall and landscaping that John mentioned, that was put in by the applicant at the request of the abutting property owner after the applicant acquired the property.
Thank you.
Good evening, for the record, Jason Adams with Bowman Consulting. We are in the process of completing a traffic impact study that would follow Mass DOT traffic impact study guidelines. We have collected existing traffic volume data. We collected it at the end of March at the intersection of Hartford Avenue and Cedar Hill Road. And we'll be using that as the basis for our traffic analysis of the intersection as well as the site driveways serving the project site. So we'll be working in concert with John and his team to ensure that the project site can have safe and efficient access. As part of our study, we are conducting a review of available Mass DOT crash data to understand if there's any crash history in the area. We are aware that Mass DOT is completing a improvement project in the area, so kind of factoring all of that in to paint the full picture of existing conditions as well as future conditions with the project in place. We have completed a site distance review of the driveway locations. Those, as they're laid out by Bowler, have met industry standards for stopping site distance and intersection site distance. And then we'll be completing a traffic analysis of operations of the signalized intersection as well as the driveways with and without the project to help understand the project impacts. At that point, we'll work with the project team here, present the information back into the town, work to mitigate any impacts of the project, and are certainly willing to have discussions to understand what best we can do to make sure that the project fits in well within the community. Similar to John, happy to answer questions now, or can come back to the questions at the end before we turn it over to Mark.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody. For the record, my name is Axel Solberg. I'm with HFA, I'm the principal architect overseeing the design on this. And so I'll just give us a high-level overview of the design, inspiration, and rationale behind the project. So as with the site, it's a fairly straightforward design. The architectural inspiration comes from local New England vernacular. Material palette is comprised primarily of a Riverstone masonry veneer blend for the base of the buildings, which gives it some rigidity and longevity given our winter conditions here. Then we have standard clapboard siding above, a mixture of shingle shakes for the gable roofs, and also board and batten to add some additional textural variety to the overall elevations. Given that it's a two-story building, we did not want to have this building be overly vertical in its experience from the pedestrian level. So we utilized the gable roof forms with the low end of those roofs coming down along Hartford Ave and along the rear side of the property, so as to give the immediate abutting neighbors a more residential appearance for the architectural composition. The gables that you'll see on the upper levels with windows are providing functional headroom clearance for the occupants of the second floor, which are intended to be business users. So given that the upper floor has a minimum ceiling height and HVAC clearance standard that we need to maintain for business users. That's what drives the overall height of the building, but we still comply with the overall zoning height maximums. The ground floor for this particular building, given that it's multi-tenant and mixed use, we wanted to ensure that we provided some functional cover from the elements. So you'll see an arcade with a overhanging canopy, and that is on the Hartford Ave and Side Street side of the facades to provide immediate cover for use of the building or parking immediately around the footprint of the building. But I think that's kind of the overall summary of the architecture. And then we have sign bands as well, but those all, you'll see in all of the sheets included with the presentation, we included a reference back to the zoning signage maximums, which we fall well below for what you see illustrated here.
Anyone else on your team?
That's it for now.
I have one question for Rob. Since we're probably gonna have common questions on both these applications. And we hear from the applicant on 182 to 186, then open it to the public. So we're not hearing the same questions. Is that permitted?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. I mean, we've done that before for projects that had multiple hearings, like the scenic road, and
Okay,
if that makes sense. It would probably be easier for the public as well, because we'll start to, when we open for public comment, we can refer to commercial building or other building that's about to be presented, so
okay.
I think that makes sense. Does that work with?
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense.
All right,
All right,
so,
so you want to give us some information on 182 to 186?
Certainly.
there's another presentation for that one, right?
Yes.
All right, let me open it up.
I just thought I'd make the evening flow a little bit better.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah, we'll,
Have a motion, thank you. I entertain a motion to reopen the public hearing for 182 to 186 Hartford Avenue.
So moved, Phil.
Second, Nick.
We have a motion on the floor, made and seconded. Any discussion? Open the public hearing. I will call for the vote.
Nick, aye.
Race, I.
Bill, aye.
Phil, aye.
Steve, aye. Thank you, Phil. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, the history is the same,
Okay,
so I'll just cover briefly what this project is, which is on the next slide. The proposal is
where am I going?
there you go. So we can stop at existing conditions because everything else is pretty much the same.
You got it.
John will walk you through what the existing conditions in the proposal are. Essentially, it's a bank with a drive-through. The project will satisfy the requirements of bylaws. We'll walk through in a minute, but I'll let John address the existing proposed conditions.
Absolutely. For the record, John Cusick. So this site is essentially due west of the site that we just talked about. You can see Cedar Hill Road right on the right-hand side, and you can see a portion of the property we just discussed, just to put it to context. So they're next door to one another, separated by Cedar Hill Road. So this property is slightly smaller. It's about 0.91 acres. And there are 2 vacant homes on the site, as you can see from the aerial in front of you. Very similar situation, vacant homes and lawn area that exists. This site has a little bit more topography than the other one. The other site was relatively flat, you had about 5 feet or so. On this site, it's actually a little bit steeper when you're looking along the westerly property line. You probably have close to 15 feet from the very, very top to the very, very bottom. So a little bit more grade change there, but beyond that, everything is the same. And then we do have roadways on 3 sides under this lot, whereas the last one you just had it on the 2. So to the next slide, what we're proposing is a bank with a drive-through. It's about a 3,500 square foot bank. Again, it's on the, I'll call it the western third of the property where the structure is. And then the parking is on the opposite side. As currently drawn, the drive-through is located on the western portion of the property. From an access standpoint, full access driveway on Hartford Avenue, enter and exit. And there is a driveway on Cedar Hill Road, so you can get back out and essentially get to the signal. From a parking standpoint, there are 14 parking spaces that would be required under zoning. 19 are proposed, 2 of which are handicap accessible and 2 electric charging spaces as well. You'll see the trash enclosure on this one, on the, again, the northwest corner of the property, fully fenced in and fully landscaped around it. Grading is such that, I think I mentioned, it's a good slope along the property, but grading set such that the buildings a few feet above Hartford Ave, and then multiple feet below the properties up above. So there's actually a pretty decent range between the properties to the north of this, based on that slope. There is essentially a wall along that entire side that we're proposing. It's kind of hard to see from plan there, but we have a proposed wall on the, I'll call it the subject side of the site. We have a wall, and then you can see the landscaping that we proposed, that landscape berm. That's actually on the high side of the wall, just for further screening. So we're lower, there's a wall, and then landscape it, just to further help with the transitioning in this zone. Similar to the previous site we talked about, will be an underground infiltration system. That's how we're going to handle stormwater. It'll be a fully compliant system. There will be a septic system. Obviously, it is very, very low flow for a use like this. So there'll be an on-site septic system, and then public water connections will be provided. With that, I can turn it over to Jason to talk about anything from a traffic standpoint on this application.
Again, Jason Adams with Bowman, essentially the same story as the previous site. We are completing separate studies for each site. Those studies will account for each other. So the bank site here that we're talking about now will account for the retail site and vice versa, but there will be 2 separate analyses done so that each project can be evaluated on its own merits in terms of safety and operations. Again, we've collected traffic volume data at the Cedar Hill Road signal with Hartford Avenue. Looking at the crash data from Mass DOT, we have again performed a site visit to look at the available site distance at these driveways as John and his team has laid them out. Again, there are clear sight lines in both directions from those driveways, so they meet the industry standards there. And as we advance the study, we will again be projecting the potential project impacts and helping the board and the community understand any potential mitigation that would be required of the project.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
Well, again, Axel Solberg with HFA. Very similar story for this building as there was for the previous one. New England inspiration, gable roof forms, masonry riverstone blend on the base, clapboard siding up above, shingles for the roof. And on this one, we're using also a combination of some traditional New England style trim and board details to create those pilasters that you see anchoring the corners of the buildings and flanking the window bays on either side. The functional aspects here are the projecting gable roof, which extends over the drive-through bay. And then we also have a projecting metal canopy, which will, similarly to the previous project, provide some functional cover to the entrance as they're exiting and entering the building, and also to keep rain and snow away from that threshold of the main entrance. So overall, very similar story. And the material palette here is intended to establish continuity between the two sites.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
What I'd like to do is, I assume everyone's here in the public tonight. Before we hear comments from the board, I'd like to hear comments from the public. This has been a long process we've worked through. To be very transparent, there was a Hartford overlay committee that all the neighbors were invited to, including the landowners, to develop a strategy to deal with this property and other properties along Hartford Avenue. So now I'd like to open it to the public for any questions they may have. Yes, sir.
Hi, Marty Roach, 31 Crystal Way, Bellingham. Great presentation, great designs. Couple concerns that I saw by looking at it. One is the dumpster enclosures. Both of those are the closest on both properties, as close to the residential property lines as possible. And being that this is going to be commercial property, 90% of the time, all waste management companies do commercial property early in the morning. And I would strongly urge that preemptive be put in that, trash pickups be done prior to 7 a.m., not to intercede with the residents so that there's no problem there. The other one is entryway off of 9th Street. I forget, I didn't write their name down. But
Cedar Hill Road.
Cedar Hill Road. I would strongly urge all access be off of Hartford Ave for those trucks, so that you're not, those are very loud trucks, and going down, again, not too far of the residents. Those are key points that I saw there. You mentioned your traffic studies. That's all well and good, but the Mass DOT pending improvements on Hartford Ave would almost negate any of the studies that you're doing now, being that the state is calling for a median strip to be put down Hartford Ave. So now you're limiting traffic flow off of Hartford Ave on the eastbound side into these said properties. So it kind of almost says this is a little premature in my mind, and this is just quick off the cuff. The other thing I noticed, the drive-through. Is it a singular drive-through for the bank, or is it a dual in terms of ATM is on the inside, the suction cup on the other side? Just, it's all another traffic flow into the property. Those are my only thoughts, concerns, looking at the plan. It's a great plan, based on the overlay that was agreed upon over the past couple of years. The only other thing I would say is we're gonna move forward on the development. You guys have done some things with the residents and put the trees and all that. Can we get rid of the buildings that look absolutely horrendous? I mean, it looks like a project in North Bellingham. So that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Down on the right-hand side.
What I noticed was,
Give you
it-
your name and
Oh.
address.
Name and address, sir.
Fred Milgram, 703 Village Lane. I live on Hartford Ave, basically. And I have noticed that there's very little traffic that comes down Cedar Hill Road toward Hartford Ave. There is space on the right side, if you coming off of Hartford Ave, going down Cedar Hill, to put an entrance in there, so you're not blocking traffic during the peak hours, waiting for somebody to go into this property. If you're coming down, coming west on Hartford Ave, or coming down, heading north on Main Street, to get into that property where they have the entrance, you have to cut across 2, possibly 3 lanes of traffic to get in there. So that means you have to go into Home Depot's property turn around, come back to enter their property on the change of a red light. And having that entrance on Hartford Ave just seems to be a little cumbersome. It takes me anywhere from 1 second to 10 minutes to get out of my driveway on Hartford Ave. And I'm on the part where there's only 2 lanes. So it's something to consider. I'm not an architect. But practicability, if you can make the entrance into Cedar Hill Road 2 ways for the length of their property, you can enter and exit from 2 different spots. And that would relieve a bit of the traffic on Hartford Ave West. Just a thought.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? I'm gonna go in the middle here.
Hi, I'm Joanne Farley. I actually live on Cedar Hill Road, 55 Cedar Hill. Respectfully, I would disagree with you, sir. There is a lot of traffic that does come down Cedar Hill because of the traffic on Hartford Ave. So people will come down Farm Street, cut through our street. They fly down at all hours. There's a bus stop on our street. Our neighbors have young grandchildren. People fly down. They'll pass you sometimes if you are not going to their speed liking. And I know there was a meeting about a year ago people wanted to make Cedar Hill Road 2 ways again. And we said, absolutely not. And they said, okay, it will not be. But just the development seems very unsafe for the people of our street. And also I thought there were people living at 186 last time I looked. I did not realize that was a vacant property. Is there anything else?
Yeah,
That's my husband.
Taylor Farley, 55 Cedar Hill. I work from home, so I actually see the street at all hours of the day. There's constantly work trucks using Cedar Hill Road as staging. Our own DPW actually uses it as staging to do work on Farm Street typically, because Farm Street is also a high traffic road. So a lot of folks use GPS like Waze. They've figured out that they can cut through Cedar Hill. I invite you to come by. I know Hartford Ave is very jammed, so I respectfully understand exactly what you're going through. The whole project has obviously had pushback, knowing that any commercial spots will create a surge, right? Rising tide lifts all boats, right? This is going to lift all traffic. With the traffic study not being even completed, I just asked for even a continuance from you guys, from my side, to hear what the impact study can find. And what you shared is information I didn't even know about a median. I mean, that's going to impact it as well, but there are multiple times in the day where Cedar Hill Road becomes a major cut through, and people, I mean, even the 2-way thing aside, exiting that bank, how are you going to enforce that they don't take that left turn out of there to try and, again, cut traffic, use it as a cut through? I understand that puts a strain on our police force, who has had issues with even having to operate those traffic lights there at Hartford Ave during Christmas time. Just the other week, Hartford Ave had some traffic light issues that coming off of 495 South, there was a blinking red light and yellow light. These are things that are just part of everyday life in Bellingham that need to, hopefully, be taken into account by the other residents on the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Gentlemen,
I'm Jeff Fitzpatrick, 63 Rentham Manor. I live nowhere near there. But I have a question. You have 2 different plans,
yes, sir.
one for a office building and one for a bank. Are we gonna have 2 entrances and exits off 140? Or are we gonna have one, or the people in the office building, are they gonna have to go around the bank to get out?
I've asked that the applicant address that.
Yeah,
I know it might have been shown on some diagrams.
and I can pull them up again.
Yeah, no, each site will have its own driveways, separate driveways.
Okay.
It's not a shared driveway to service.
Access and egress, correct.
Well, that's not gonna help the traffic any.
You're just one person at a time. So there'll be, each one will have their own access and egress. They're not gonna be common or shared.
Mr. Chair, if I could, there are 2 separate lots
Yes, sir.
that are separated by a street, so there'd be literally no way to have a common driveway.
Okay.
I think I was misunderstood when I suggested making, Cedar Hill Road two ways. I'm only talking about the length of their property, where an island could be put in with a keep right sign to the light. That it would keep people from, cutting through to Farm Street.
Okay, thank you for your clarification. I'll just turn it over to the board, I'd like to start to my left.
Just a few high-level questions. The first regarding traffic, it was mentioned that obviously future conditions are gonna be considered. There was a pretty large project recently approved across the street that's likely gonna be pretty impactful to the area. Was that considered
Yes.
as part of the future conditions?
Correct. And just if I may, the Mass DOT roadway improvement project would also be considered. So we'll be presenting an analysis of existing conditions. What will you see out there right now if you were to drive by the site? But when we project into the future, we will be including other developments such as what you just mentioned, as well as the Mass DOT improvements, which does change some of the roadway configuration and the signal at Cedar Hill a bit too. So that'll be presented as part of our study.
Okay, a few residents raised questions, so I think a visual might be beneficial. And then for the retail side, any idea how many tenants proposed?
At this point, no, I think you set it up so you could have multiple tenants. It's really hard to say because there aren't any tenants right now. You know, for, a building that size, it could be a few of them, but I really don't know.
Okay. And then the bank side, is there existing screening there currently? Or would that all be new on the back side of the property?
We're proposing some new screening, because we're putting in a wall,
Okay.
and then there's gonna be new screening right up on top of the wall. I think there might be a fence back there, but the screening, there's more substantial screening on the existing screening on the opposite parcel.
Okay.
On the bank parcel, or really would be kind of creating new screening.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, that's all I have today.
Thank you.
I think obviously traffic is going to be a big topic of conversation. And I think queuing in that area, especially coming into Bellingham from Hopedale or Milford, or whatever it is, because you've got people taking a left going into that bank. I think queuing up at that light is pretty considerable. So just making sure we emphasize looking at that. And then I did have a question about signage. Is there gonna be any like post signage, or is it just the signage on the building that you had in the renderings?
There'd be an identification sign.
Okay,
We don't have. What's that?
Like the
We
monument.
would have
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
okay. And then I would just reiterate about the screening, because that came up a lot in our discussions when we were doing the Hartford Ave overlay as a subcommittee with the abutters to the property. So I really think spending a lot of time focusing on the screening is going to be very important as well. Yeah, thank you.
Well, most of the concerns that everybody talked about have been my concerns. Just to reiterate, traffic, I think, is gonna be the main thing out of this. I think from a use perspective, what was proposed previously predates my involvement, but I think from a use perspective, this may be something that appeases everybody, or most everybody. My intuition will correct me, either prove me wrong or right, shortly. But with regard to the retail, Nick had asked about the number, so you don't know, but with the retail, is there going to be access from the back of the building if retail are taking deliveries of any kind, or would it be going through the front?
It'd probably be going through the back, I imagine, and these would be small, like a box truck or something like that. We're not talking like a high turnover type of a user there. It typically would be kind of a local retailer type of an operation.
So you're not looking at, for the lack of a better word, garage style doors?
No.
These would be- Okay, And then if we're talking box trucks, then we should be cognizant of what times they're going in and out of there, since it's the back and it's abutting the residents. You know, and my only other comment I'll say here, and this is not a bad thing, is I'm familiar with the types of buildings that the companies put up. And I think they add to the character of the towns that they reside in. And frankly, I think what you're presenting here would fit in well from an aesthetic standpoint, and even from a use perspective. But again, the traffic is a big concern. It's no matter what you're gonna put there, traffic's gonna be a concern. But it's important that we make sure it is addressed to the satisfaction of the people that are abutters, because that's important to me. That's all I have.
I got three topics, I'll add, to the other conversations that we've been having. Number one, of course, is the traffic. And when we get to the peer review of the traffic, I'm also gonna be asking about, is there a way to direct the traffic from the east away from the entrance to the commercial? So if you're traveling from the west to the east, I worry about the cars crossing the lanes and trying to get into your commercial building. So cutting across traffic lanes.
So, but you're concerned with the left-hand turn entering the site from
Yeah.
Hartford.
So if you're
entering.
coming from the west to the east. And I understand that there's road work improvement in the future. Undefined future timeline. But I'd be looking to see if we can have design features that would keep the traffic from trying to cut across the lanes into your, especially your commercial site, and that's a big one there. Secondly, the commercial site, turn, you know, have you worked with the fire department yet as far as access around the building and things like that?
We have not at this
You have
point.
not, I suggest we do, some earlier than later. Regulation around the entire building, I don't think is provided in this case, so that'll maybe a topic that the fire chief would want to talk about. If not, if he thinks it's okay, then that's fine, but I would suspect circulation is usually a topic that comes up.
Yeah, we'll definitely work with the fire chief. We wanted to come in here and get all comments and kind of get everything together and then start moving forward. I'm thinking what I typically see with a site this size, when you're on two roads in a small building, that they feel that the access is fine. But your point is absolutely taken. We've got to meet with them and kind of make sure that they're comfortable and not having us assume what they might like.
Thank you. Third item, I guess that we didn't quite talk about was the, so I saw designs of the building with the color palettes that were suggested. We don't know who the bank isn't, there isn't a bank that's coming in right now with a color palette that's gonna be different than what you're presenting tonight, right? And I guess what I'm saying is, do you anticipate, I mean, I saw the place where the signs are, putting a bank sign there, is completely appropriate. What I would be concerned about is if all of a sudden the entire design changes because of who the tenant is. Do we have a tenant at this point? I'm assuming no, but I'll let you know.
Yeah, no, we don't have a tenant at the time, and
Okay,
we would maybe suggest modification, come back in front of the board.
okay,
And-
so the idea would be the permitted project that's here would be permitted to the color scheme that you presented tonight or next time around. And then you'd have to come back for a minor or major change is what your intention is.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
You're comfortable with that? Rob, is that something that we can build into a condition?
Yeah, I would say substantial changes to the,
Color
architectural
scheme.
facade and color scheme, but, I think with the color scheme, because it's so neutral, the only thing you're gonna see is an actual sign with colors that are gonna
Yeah.
match.
So this is a benign color scheme right now is what
Don't want it
my
to be
thought.
EDC.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing up any commercial
Yeah.
property names or logos or anything, but I'd be concerned if somebody came in and tried to. Well, what you're presenting is not, I don't wanna say, it is not I don't have a huge negative word for what you're saying, okay, what you're trying to present here. I like the color patterns and that you're presenting here. I just wanna make sure that that's what's gonna get, if that's what you're presenting, that's what we're gonna condition in the conditions. And there'd be a major or minor coming forward with the signage and the color. And any lighting that would go with it would have to be dark sky compliant, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, our objective is to maintain the transitional structure. So we're transitioning between the commercial and the residential. So our overall objective is to provide a transitional piece. And therefore, we're absolutely comfortable with coming back for modifications if needed.
Yeah, that's one of the the overlay district that's designed and, where you guys are right up against a commercial neighborhood, or excuse me, a residential neighborhood, and that's been, well discussed with the ownership applicant team through the years that, this is this color scheme and the pattern and the design here are key features to this fitting into this area. And so I believe we probably need to come to a conclusion that we're gonna put it in there, and it's gonna be conditioned if that's what your intention is.
Absolutely.
It sounds like it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Comfortable with that.
all right, and I know we'll do peer reviews and. all
Yeah, I
that
can
going
give a little
forward.
summary once the chair.
Yeah,
has its
that's the
comment.
questions I have for tonight. I'm sure.
I want to pick up on the color scheme. I like what I saw. And Bill, if you look across the street, it's not that dissimilar to what's at Dunkin' Donuts.
Hmm.
And believe it or not, it's pretty similar to what used to be at the so-called gas station on Hartford Avenue in Sunoco.
Hmm.
I mean, what they've done looks very similar to your color scheme. Few topics I want to articulate. I do believe we'll hear from fire and police at some point in time at future meetings. And if you haven't done already, you can probably get a template from the fire department for turning radiuses. During the meetings for the overlay committee, we potentially talked about 2.5 stories for an elevator. Is this gonna have handicap accessibility? Okay,
Yes.
Yes, it has to.
okay, thank you.
An elevator still planned.
Mhm,
correct?
yes.
Yes, yeah.
One of the big topics, probably for everyone in Bellingham, regardless if you're in North Bellingham or South Bellingham, is the tear down of the homes. Assuming we were to reach an agreement, how quickly could you tear those down?
We would immediately file for demolition permits and with hopes of 60 days from receiving our demolition permit. The structures will be down.
I think that would be well received by people, not only in this room, but in the town of Bellingham. One thing we did not talk about are hours. You can be in a residential area. I assume it's gonna be limited weekends and limited hours during the day. Based on your tenants.
I would imagine. We don't have the tenants, but again, we're open to creating that transitional piece. And what those conditions are, if we had a medical user, for example, it would be Monday through Friday, I would imagine 8 to 5 or 8 to 4:30.
Okay,
So the uses are already kind of driving the hours, the uses that are allowed there. So we would be open to that.
and then Becker's hours, so to speak.
Exactly. So banking hours are.
One thing, you mentioned about the, property of 182 to 186 was the topography. Brought up the idea of headlights. When people are using the drive-through and they're exiting. And we look at every opportunity, to pull that away from the residents. And to baffle it somehow.
Yeah, I think the topography is actually works very well in our favor in
I
this.
suspected that, but I'm not interested.
Yeah, typically you'll have the headlights up a couple feet. And where you run into issues, if you're kind of higher driving down or, you know, you're heading up into the site. With that particular site, it's actually set down and there's a wall behind it. Like, so as I mentioned earlier, we have the bank site. We're proposing a wall and then landscaping on top of that. So the headlights would actually hit the wall. They wouldn't be going above it. So I think based on the topography in and of itself, it would mitigate any headlights leaving the premises.
Okay. One thing this board's learned, and I've learned since I've been here, is landscaping. I'd like to request to put as mature as possible landscaping in for the benefit of the residents and also the people driving by. You know, we don't want something that's gonna take 5 years to grow. And also, do your best you can to make sure it survives the initial timeframe after it's been planted. I also think, and it was the first time I heard this evening, I think we need to verify the existence of a median strip as part of the new construction, because that may limit left-hand turns and right-hand turns on an easterly and westerly direction on Hartford Avenue. So I think that needs to be verified. And those are my comments.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
It had to do with Phil's comment that the DOT improvement, it's been known that it's coming,
Yep.
but in the foreseeable future, but it's not under the auspices of the town. Do you guys not have any indication of when the state is thinking about moving forward on it as a planning board? And I know it's their state road, so they can kind of do what they want when they want, but have they engaged with the planning board themselves? Or can the planning board request from DOT?
Not with the board specifically.
Yeah,
Rob can answer that.
they haven't engaged, it's not the planning board's project, it's more of the DPW. And from what I understand, there was some right-of-way permitting that delayed some of the project, because this was supposed to go out to bid, I think it was last month. We're now looking at a summer bid deadline. So goes out to bid and then the contractor will, accept the bid. So it's probably gonna be a fall project, the earliest.
So we're looking at within the next 18 months, whatever they're gonna do is gonna be in full blown mode.
Yeah, hopefully, but it's the state. So,
I know, I get it. I'm
so,
just bringing it up.
Excuse me, Rob, the last time that one of the other projects was in front of us, I'm not sure if this is something we can answer here today, but the funding of this total project. There was work grants, there was another project that was contributing to it, and there was another bucket of money that was not defined at the time. I'm assuming that bucket of undefined money is still undefined?
I have no idea.
Okay,
That's-
so that meets my concern about future projects and current state and future state. Is that I don't, and maybe other people know, but the future state. I'm concerned about the future state and how far the future state is versus, I'm assuming the applicant wants to get their project up and running as fast as they can, maybe. Then maybe there's both can be, there's a way to consider both through this process.
I would just say that the critical aspect for this project is to make sure that any DOT improvements in Hartford Ave are implemented in your site design, which I know Bowman has those and will include those. Is now a good time for me to go on my little,
I just want to make one comment.
I guess not, okay. I'll wait.
Mark, I want to pivot on something you mentioned. I'm gonna disagree slightly. Gentlemen, when you do your traffic study, can you do it, I think you've alluded to this, but I want to make sure it gets accomplished. I want to look at the traffic now, the current conditions, in case things take time to redesign Hartford Avenue. And then separate and distinct what the impact will be on traffic with this project completed on Hartford Avenue. So we're looking at, long-term, short-term impact on traffic to address the concerns of the neighbors. Floor is now yours.
Yay, all right, so, couple things. I know regarding Cedar Hill Road. So I will say that when we receive this application, all the applications go out to the department heads in town. And I will tell you that within 5 minutes of receiving this and sending it out, there was a call that was received from our public safety officer saying, hey, we gotta talk about Cedar Hill Road, because it is an issue. And that really is what's spawning. Well, there's more stuff with the Hartford Ave improvements, but that's what's really spawning a traffic impact analysis, is really to hone in on the Cedar Hill Road situation, because you have the signalized intersection there, which is good, but, it's a one-way. Now, I will say that this board, myself, we cannot make the decision here of making the road a two-way. So don't lose any sleep over that. That is a select board decision. That's where the conversation.
We've already been at that meeting, don't worry.
Okay, so you're aware. So with that, what we would like to do, or what I think we should do is, Bowman is working on the traffic impact analysis that will be submitted to this board, and it will be all public record. Everything's posted on our website. Once we receive that, we're going to have a third-party peer review engineer take a look at that. So it's going to be a third-party traffic consultant that's going to be looking at the review on behalf of the town that the applicant pays for. And with that, we're going to have public safety involved as well to discuss what's the best approach here, because they're the ones that are getting the calls and have to enforce this whole two-way, one-way stuff. So it's going to be an in-depth conversation, and that's going to happen once we receive the peer review and the traffic impact analysis, and it will be done in the public hearing. So regarding, I hope that this gets continued. I don't want to speak for the applicant, but I assume you're not going to request that the hearing gets closed tonight. I assume you're going to request a continuance because there's a bit of work ahead of us. With that, there's also going to be a peer review for the civil engineering side of things. So making sure that the stormwater design meets the standards. We've already looked at some zoning aspects. I'll have my own technical memo on our website with my comments. So there's, more work ahead here. So that's it. That's all I had.
Mr. Chair, can I just make one suggestion?
Absolutely.
We may want to do a site tour,
Okay.
as a group, because I felt like when we did a site tour when we were on the subcommittee, it really was different than driving through that area. So I think it would be helpful for the board to see it if everyone agrees.
No problem.
Thank you.
Anyway, it was a little eye-opening walking through there.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was.
yes.
So, looks like we have more questions.
It's more just to follow up, appreciate your sentiment. Can you share anything with the public safety officer, maybe mention to you in that call? I mean, having a conversation, did you have that at all, or? I'm just
Well,
curious.
No, there was no specific details, just that, it needs to be looked at, because at that point, we hadn't received any indication of a traffic impact analysis.
Mhm.
So that's why Bowman's now working on it.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So,
It was
yeah.
More, hey, what's the impact gonna be? Okay.
Exactly.
I'm sure if they gave any indication, because the two-way, as you all may or may not know, was instituted 20 years ago because of a drunk driving accident coming up 126 and somebody plowed into a house in the street, and
Yeah.
126 has only gotten bigger, and the town's only grown since then, so
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, and that, the public safety officer, he'll be here too to discuss in this public forum, so.
Thank you.
Excellent. So with that, I don't know when you folks would like to continue. I will say that May 22nd is off the table. Absolutely not May 22nd. For For people who don't know, May 22nd is our one project on that agenda, and it's the big one at the high school auditorium, so.
So you're doing Memorial Day is the 26th. I don't know where you're going now.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What's the decision deadline, Rob?
This is a special permit, so you have 90 days from when you close the hearing, so you're not on the clock.
There is the development plan approval too, though. That one does have a deadline, so we push that out when we can, so.
Obviously, we'll agree to any extensions necessary so that you can issue the decision.
Yeah, we have June 30th currently as the decision deadline, so.
Might I make a suggestion? If you're asking about going on a site walk, which I think is a great idea, perhaps we move this out about a month or so to give time for you to schedule a site walk. We can walk the site, see what comes up from that, and at the next hearing, we can see where you want
That's
to go
fine.
from there.
So that would put us to, do you want to be on the May 8th agenda? You basically, it'd either be May 8th or June 12th. June 12th?
Yeah, June 12th.
Okay. All right. That'll be good because that'll give Bowman time to get that impact analysis done and we can get the peer reviews locked in.
I'm sorry,
Um,
how much of it?
I still have June 30th. I can push that out.
we're happy to agree to anything that gives you comfort. Could I ask one process question in terms of the peer review?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
If we're coming back on June 12, do you just engage the peer reviewer without requiring a vote of the board?
Correct. Actually, I already reached out. We have the
Perfect.
proposal, so we're ready to go whenever. I think
We
you,
want to get the study done, and I want to do one more test on my end.
okay. Oh, that works.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure.
I know we're very early on in the process, but as Mr. Devine brought up special conditions. I just want to thank Mr. Rose for bringing up one thing I did forget. I know there's an immediate abutter here that's behind the retail center. And we did discuss actually putting a special condition limitation on the hours for the dumpster removal. So I do just want to bring that to the board's attention that we would be requesting a condition like that, as we already spoke to one of the butters. So I just wanted to.
Did you come to the, do you have the proposal to give us tonight as a proposal? You came to an agreement about hours, what are they?
So it would be
With them.
nothing prior to 7 or after 5 for trash removal. So nothing.
It's only for trash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can put that in the, okay with the condition of that, if
Yeah.
that's what we.
I just wanted to put that out there.
So
I think there was one person who had their hand raised. Mr. Hamway.
Yes, Ken Hamway, 39 Weathersfield Road. Just to be clear, where the bank is, that's on one property. Is it strictly the bank and the bank only on that property?
Correct.
And then on the other property, it's, I hear commercial retail stores.
One building.
One building, is it like, would there be a medical office, a dental office, or is it unknown?
I believe they're approaching. I'll let them speak.
Yeah, we're hoping for exactly what you stated, hopefully low impact medical use, dental. There's a limitation of what we can do with the adaptive overlay.
So these
But
will
those are the
really be,
intentions.
these will really be small retail outlets. It's not gonna be anything.
Correct.
huge.
No,
Okay.
if you look at the plans, you have 3 lots. On each application. There'll be one building in each lot.
Right.
Lower level is based on the renderings for the bank and 2 stories to the right-hand side where the house is on.
Thank you very much.
And you heard them say they would like to get the houses knocked down as soon as possible.
Thank you.
So I would entertain a motion to continue this to,
I think
One more
Mr.
person?
Prescott.
Could I possibly, I'm sorry, should have raised my hand much earlier. The lot that's 182
yes, sir.
has a historic house on it that will be done down as part of the project. I was just gonna ask if there was ever any consideration by the applicant to somehow incorporate that house into the project. I know it really doesn't fit in with the bank, so to speak, but that house was built in about 1740. And it is one of the oldest houses in town. And we do not have a delay bylaw for demolishing properties, but the historical commission would be very interested in being a part of any decisions on demolishing it, maybe getting a chance to tour the inside of the house, take pictures to preserve. Because that house is listed with the Mass Historical Society. So we would like some consideration to at least be, have everybody aware of that.
Okay, that'll be added to the minutes.
Yeah, can you reach out to the?
Absolutely, we would welcome them to come in and take pictures or.
Yeah.
We would welcome that idea, absolutely.
We have a motion on the floor, is it June 12th?
Yeah, so, both hearings are open, so the motion should be, to continue 182 and 186 special permanent development plan and 190, 194, 198 special permanent development plan to June 12th. And the extension date I just changed to July 31st.
Did you want to schedule a site visit as well before you close things out?
You can be in contact over the next few days.
Do it on email.
Yeah,
Okay,
we don't have to wait for a meeting.
okay, perfect. I wasn't sure.
So I would entertain, two motions as outlined by Robert. One for 190, 194, 198.
That's just a
Nothing happened.
continuation request.
June 12th and July 31st. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second? We have a motion on the floor in the second. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, aye.
Liz, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I, Steve, I.
In addition, I will entertain a motion. Same motion. June 12th, July 31st, for 182 to 186 Hartford Avenue. Entertain a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Nick.
Motion on the floor has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, aye.
Liz, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I, Steve, I.
That motion passes. That motion passes unanimously. Before we go on to other business, I just want to thank the public for coming here. You have the gates now. Please continue to participate in this process like you always do. And any questions, feel free to reach out to the town planner. The applicant, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It seems to be a fairly proactive meeting this evening. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So, for the general business, we have the one item, which is the approval of the minutes for March 27th. We don't have the minutes. It took a little while to get that recording on. Which is probably all.
No, seriously?
So, we do have the draft minutes there. Yeah, I didn't review them yet. They just came out today. So, yeah, so we'll have two sets of minutes for the next planning board meeting.
Oh, okay.
Trying to think what else. We have,
How many pages do you think we're looking at?
it's a lengthy,
Okay.
lengthy minute, so we'll see, but Katie did an excellent job with those. With that, I know we have, I don't have any other general business, just a couple updates. I know at the next meeting, we'll have a couple A&Rs to sign.
Excuse me for the public, we're still trying to have a meeting. Thank you.
So we have that, that's pretty much it. Well, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
We might have a record for quickest meeting with agenda items. That's pretty good.
When do we meet next?
24th?
24th,
When is
Wednesday night.
when is the select board meeting? Couple days.
So I believe that is the 28th. It hasn't been confirmed just yet. But yeah, we'll have that joint meeting on the 28th. Okay? Yeah, we'll have the agenda posted for planning and select board.
Okay,
And sorry, one other thing too, just the next meeting, just so you're aware, it's gonna be 4 items. I tried to just do our warrant articles. The good news is the warrant articles, are pretty straightforward this time around. I wouldn't expect a massive amount of public input, but so I don't expect them to be very long agenda items, but that will be mixed in with 2 other public hearings for 2 applications, Prospect Hill and 123 Mendon Street.
and what is Lou's topic for that evening, do we know?
It's just stormwater related stuff.
Okay.
We shouldn't really be talking about it, but
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
that's all right.
I'm gonna need someone to, try to fill Brian's shoes when we adjourn and say goodnight, Bellingham. But I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Second,
Second, Nick.
any discussion, all in favor?
Nick, I.
Liz, I.
Bill, aye.
Go on.
The motion passes unanimously. Do anyone want to say goodnight, Bellingham?
Good night, Bellingham.
Not me.
We are done.